AITA for refusing to upend my 10F's life, her magnet school, team commitments, and routines, because her dad who left as a newborn suddenly wants family. I, 35F, share a 10-year-old daughter with my ex Tom, 40M. When her daughter was just a few weeks old, he moved out to live with someone else. I didn't chase him. I didn't block him either. I just stopped auditioning for the part of nagging mom who forces you to parent. For years, he floated in and out. A few years ago, I finally put him on child support, and now that he pays $300 per month, he seems to think he's father of the year. Last year, Tom married Peggy, 45F. Suddenly, he wants to be very involved. I consulted my daughter's therapist, and, based on her recommendation, agreed to every other weekend UW visits as a start. I'm not going to throw my kid's life into a blender because Tom found a new family role to cosplay. I'm also not going to drive all over creation or rearrange her school for his convenience. He promised at the time that logistics wouldn't be a problem. That promise lasted about 5 minutes. I need outside eyes on this because I'm being told by Tom, by Peggy, and even by a few people who like to play devil's advocate that I'm being inflexible, controlling, and alienating. My gut says I'm protecting my kid's stability. But when the chorus gets loud, it's easy to doubt yourself. Tom and I were together for a few years before I got pregnant. The pregnancy wasn't an accident. It wasn't meticulously planned either. It was that we love each other, we're stable-ish, let's see kind of decision. The baby came, I was deliriously sleep-deprived and happy. And 2 weeks later, he was moving his stuff out with the help of a woman whose name I learned from a forwarded Facebook post. Yes, I know how that sounds. He didn't disappear completely. He texted. He showed up sometimes. He brought a box of diapers once and posed for a photo like he'd personally solved world hunger. He never asked for formal custody. He also didn't seem to grasp that babies are not just props you show off to make your mom clap for you on Instagram. I didn't take him to court then. I was too busy keeping a human alive and try to remember what day it was. But I kept all the messages. I kept every hey I'll swing by that turned into sorry can't make it, we're crazy, or my car is acting up. When my daughter was around 6, I filed for child support. $300 per month. He complained it was gouging him. I shrugged and bought cleats. My daughter, let's call her Elle, is bright, stubborn, funny, and obsessed with soccer. She also worked her tail off to get into a competitive magnet program in our district. I handled the admin, applications, meetings, forms, and she did the rest. She thrived there. She has a female homeroom teacher she adores, a STEM club she saves her allowance to buy little kits for, and a team she never wants to disappoint. We also started therapy last year. Not because there was a crisis, but because a therapist is like a good referee. They keep the game fair when grown-ups get loud. Then Tom met and married Peggy. I didn't know Peggy. When he described her, he used phrases like down-to-earth and not high maintenance. In practice, down-to-earth seemed to translate to if you can't see the dirt from across the room isn't dirty, and not high maintenance translated to I don't believe in hand soap with chemicals. That's me being snarky. I'm not perfect either. I color-code my pantry and label spices like a librarian. The difference is that my brand of weird keeps our gear in one place and our kid on time. After they married, Tom asked for more custody. That was the phrase. He didn't define it. We went to Elle's therapist. The therapist talked to Elle alone, talked to me, and, because he asked, talked to Tom. Her recommendation: start with EOW and reassess in a few months if and only if Elle feels safe, supported, and the schedule is consistently respected. That felt reasonable to me. Tom agreed in front of the therapist. He texted me afterward, "This is a great start. I'm totally on board." Spoiler, he was not. Tom and Peggy live about 25 to 30 minutes away. In the grand scheme of geography, that's not far. In the grand scheme of a 10-year-old who plays games every Saturday morning and loves sleeping in her own bed on Sunday night, it's not nothing. It matters. He moved there because Peggy needs a lot of property. Direct quote, relayed to me by Elle with the reverence of a kid learning that grown-ups have their own unreasonable needs. From the first EOW, Elle came home with stories that made my eye twitch. The house is lived in. I don't mean lived in like mismatched mugs and a dog that sheds. I mean lived in like sticky. Elle learned which towels are safe because they don't have an unidentifiable grit on them. There's always a pile of laundry under the stairs and at least 3 cups with dried milk rings on the coffee table. Tom insists it's fine and that I'm being classist, which is wild considering we're the same class, and I buy my dish soap at the same grocery store he does. There's yelling. Not constant, not raging, but a current of raised voices that runs under everything. Peggy has 3 kids, a 17-year-old son who mostly avoids the house, a 12-year-old daughter who is glued to her phone like it's a ventilator, and a 10-year-old son who is Elle's age. Elle calls them nice but loud. She tries to be polite, but I can see it on her face when she's there. She's bracing. She's not used to a place where bedtime is a theory and handfuls of Doritos count as dinner if you're standing over the sink. There's also an anti-vax thing. Peggy proudly told Elle that they trust their immune systems and that vaccines are full of toxins. We are up to date on L's vaccines. Our pediatrician has been clear, and my boundary on that is stone. Tom says he's not as extreme as Peggy, which is like saying you're not as extreme as the person who lit the fuse while holding a match. He hasn't tried to stop L's healthcare, but he's floated alternative schedules, like they're compromise instead of risk. I told him in writing that medical decisions follow the pediatrician, and any changes require written consent. He left me on read for 3 days and then replied K. The worst part for L isn't even the mess or the yelling. It's the timing. They run late. For everything. 10 minutes late to practice. 15 minutes late to pick up. And once. This is the incident that made me download a co-parenting app and start documenting. 45 minutes late to Saturday's game. That morning L texted me from the car. Mom, I think we're going to be late. I asked how late. No answer. 10 minutes passed. Then, we're still in the car. We had to stop because Peggy's 10-year-old forgot his cleats. I called Tom. He answered and immediately started yelling over the road noise. Stop calling me to micromanage. We're on our way. I said, you are 40 minutes late to a game that matters to her. He said, it's youth soccer. Relax. I said nothing because if I said what I wanted to say, a judge would call it colorful language in a transcript. They arrived as the second half started. Elle didn't cry until after the game, when her coach did the thing good coaches do, told her he was glad she made it, that she had hustled, and she understood all at once what she'd missed. In the car home, she said, tiny and tired, he doesn't think it matters as much as I do. You don't have to be a therapist to hear the grief in that. When Tom reappeared with a stepfamily and an appetite for custody, I said I would not change our routines to accommodate him. I said I would not spend hours in the car that could be homework, team practice, or sleeping. He promised it wouldn't be a problem. Then he asked me to meet halfway for handoffs. Then he asked if we could switch off weeks of who drives. Then he asked if I could just do this one because gas is insane right now. There's always a reason. I declined. I am not punishing him for living far. I am holding him to the terms he agreed to and the reality he created. If you choose property over proximity, you also choose the commuting that comes with it. It's called a consequence. Elle shouldn't be strapped into an SUV for an extra hour across a weekend because adults need space. Every time I decline to meet halfway, I document why in the app. For clarity, you chose to move 25 to 30 minutes away. I will not add additional car time for Elle. You're welcome to pick her up and drop her off at our address at the agreed times. His replies are a mix of wow, unbelievable, and the occasional, a court will see how inflexible you are. Okay, a court can also see timestamps, GPS check-ins, and calendars with circles on every late handoff. The most audacious request so far, and the one that sent me here, is that Tom wants to enroll Elle in the public school in his and Peggy's district because Peggy's kids are jealous of the opportunities Elle gets in the magnet program. He presented it to me like a practical solution. One school, one drop-off, everyone happy. Here's what I actually heard. I want you to uproot the environment that nurtures your kids' curiosity and persistence, so mine feel less uncomfortable about not having that thing. If you're bristling, join me. Elle got into that program on merit. Does it require parental involvement? Sure. I had to fill out forms and track deadlines. Elle had to show up. She did. She earned it. It is not a trophy we can pass around a blended household, so nobody has to sit with the feeling of missing out. I told Tom, again in writing, that Elle will not be changing schools. My reasons, she thrives there. The therapist recommends stability, and removing her to soothe someone else's envy is not a valid educational plan. He replied that his stepkids deserve the same opportunities, and that my snob a magnet is creating division. I suggested he talk to their school counselor about gifted pullouts, clubs, and district transfer options, and that he brainstorm opportunities for them without dismantling hers. He said I was being elitist. I said we were done discussing this unless a judge was present. The therapist has been a gift. Elle likes her. She asked if she could bring her soccer medal to a session, and the therapist hung it on the coat rack next to her scarves. In that office, Elle says things I didn't know she had the words for. Like, I get tired when the house is loud. And, at Dad's I don't know when things start or end. And the one that knocked me sideways. I feel like Dad want me to be part of their family, but I already have a family. The therapist teaches her ways to say those things to adults without apologizing for existing. After the 45-minute game debacle, the therapist recommended we hold at UW for now. She put in her notes, which she can summarize for a court if needed. Elle is not alarmed or unsafe at Tom's house, but she is uncomfortable and anxious about the lack of structure and punctuality. Increasing custody time would likely increase distress. The path forward is consistency, not quantity. I forward that guidance to Tom in the app. He heart-reacted. The app has this weird button, and then immediately proposed extra time on the Wednesday before the next game. Because phone calls devolve into you're controlling versus you're irresponsible, everything goes into the app. I try to keep it boring and practical. My boundaries. 1. We keep UW for now per therapist. 2. Elle remains at her magnet school. Educational stability is non-negotiable. 3. Medical decisions follow our pediatrician's guidance. Any changes require written consent from both of us. 4. Tom handles all transportation to and from his house because he chose the distance. 5. Extracurriculars are prioritized. If arrival is more than 15 minutes late for a game or practice while Elle is with him, the visit ends early, and she returns to me so she doesn't miss the commitment completely. Yes, I know this one is spicy. The therapist suggested a consequence that fits the value Elle is protecting: showing up. I told Tom before implementing it. He told me I was weaponizing soccer. I told him he was free to help me make it irrelevant by being on time. I'm not trying to be petty. I'm trying to be predictable in a situation where my ex treats time like a rumor. The weekend after the late game, Tom showed up 5 minutes early for pickup. I thought maybe the message landed. Elle texted a photo of the dog sleeping on her lap, and I exhaled. Then Sunday night rolled around, and he texted me at 6:35, running a little behind, be there by 7:10. Drop-off is 7 o'clock. He arrived at 7:23. Elle still needed a shower and finish a worksheet about types of rocks. She dropped her bag by the door and looked at me like she was checking if we were mad. I wasn't. I was tired. She showered in her own bathroom with a towel that felt like a towel, and I emailed her teacher to say we'd be ready to discuss metamorphic rocks on Monday. Monday afternoon, Tom asked again about meeting halfway next time. I said no. He sent a paragraph about how I'm making this harder than it needs to be. I replied with one sentence: if you're late, you make it harder for her. He didn't answer. By Wednesday, he had pivoted to the school issue. He sent me photos of Peggy's kids at their school's fall festival and wrote, "Will be great for Elle to be part of this." I said, "She is part of her school's events. We'll be at the Magnet Fall Showcase next week." He replied with a screenshot of gas prices. I stared at my phone like it would grow arms and clap. So yes, that's the day I came here. Because sometimes you need strangers to remind you that you're not insane. Update 1. First YOW after I set the 15-minute boundary, I put it plainly in the app. If arrival to an extracurricular is greater than 15 minutes late while Elle is with you, I will meet you at the field and take her so she doesn't miss the whole commitment. He replied with absurd. I responded with the schedule for Saturday's practice and Sunday's game, including the time the coach asks kids to arrive for warm-ups. Saturday, they arrived 12 minutes late. I could feel Tom testing the fence like a dog looking for a weak slat. Elle ran out of the car half-shoed, hair in a knot, and still made it to the last drill. Sunday, there was a forgot the shin guards emergency. This time they arrived 22 minutes late. I was already at the field with my keys. Elle texted, "We are late, I'm sorry." I wrote back, "Not your fault. I'm here. See you soon." When her car pulled in, I walked over. Tom got out fast like he was going to block me with charisma. I kept my voice as calm as I could. "We talked about this. It's more than 15 minutes. I'm taking Elle so she can participate." He said, loudly enough for Elle to hear, "This is ridiculous. You're punishing me." I said, "I'm protecting her commitment." Elle slid into my car without a word and stared at her knee. We drove to the far end of the lot, and I told her, "You did nothing wrong." She nodded. After the game, Tom sent me a furious paragraph about weaponizing time and threatening to take me to court. I replied, "If you prefer to have a judge formalize punctuality, I'm open to that." Later that night, Elle asked, "Are you and Dad okay?" I said, "We're grown-ups figuring out logistics. We don't have to be okay for you to be okay." She stuck the post-game orange slice sticker on my sleeve. If you know, you know. Update 2. I scheduled a session with a mediator who specializes in co-parenting agreements. I invited Tom through the app. He said mediation is for people who can't handle their business, which is irony dressed as a leather jacket. I scheduled anyway and sent him the appointment. He showed up 10 minutes late, on brand, and spent the first 5 minutes telling the mediator I'm high control. The mediator was one of those clinical calm people who nods like she's counting your exhale. She asked for our priorities. I said stability of school, punctuality for extracurriculars, and a clear transportation plan. Tom said, more time and less nitpicking. The mediator asked him to define more time. He said he wanted to add Wednesday overnights on his weeks and switch Elle to his district school by fall. The mediator blinked slow. "We don't make big changes when a child is distressed by smaller ones," she said. "Let's start with punctuality. Can you commit to on-time arrival for Elle's activities?" He said, "We try." She said, "That's not a commitment." Then she turned to me. "What happens when they're late?" I explained the 15-minute boundary. She didn't flinch. She asked Tom if he could set alarms or build in buffer time. He said, "We have a lot going on." She suggested that going on time could be the thing that's going on. We left with a draft agreement. Keep YOW. No midweek overnight changes for now. Tom handles transportation entirely for his weekends. All extracurricular times will be honored. If arrival will be late by more than 15 minutes, Elle returns to me so she doesn't miss the event entirely. Medical decisions remain with the pediatrician's guidance. Any deviations require written agreement in the app. Both parties will communicate only via the app. Tom didn't sign. He said he wanted to sleep on it. The app shows draft, awaiting signature. I printed it and put in a blue folder labeled, in case of judge. Update 3. The Magnet School announced their spring project showcase. Elle is designing a Rube Goldberg machine that knocks over a line of dominoes into a paper cup. She drew a diagram with little arrows and labeled one part unnecessary, but cool. She's my child. That same week, Tom emailed me. Yes, outside the app, a proposal to move Elle to his district school for parity with siblings and reduced travel. He CC'd Peggy. The email included bullet points about hassle and family unity. It included no bullet points about Elle. When someone writes a proposal that forgets the subject, you can smell it. I forwarded it to the app and replied there, Elle will not be chained to schools. She is thriving. I'm willing to discuss ways for your stepchildren to pursue advanced programming and extracurricular opportunities. I am not willing to dismantle Elle's environment to soothe their feelings. Peggy replied from Tom's account, which is a neat trick for a co-parenting tool. We just want what's best for the kids. I wrote, so do I. For this kid, what's best is staying in her school. Then I closed my laptop and iced my jaw. Update 4. Tom filed a motion to modify custody. I know because a server in Apollo handed me a folded stack of paper while I was scraping glue off a poster board. The motion asked for Wednesday overnights and primary enrollment in his district public school. It included a paragraph about my rigid, controlling nature. It did not mention the 45-minute game debacle, the multiple lay handoffs, or the therapist. If you only read his motion, you'd think I have a timer in my bloodstream and an irrational hatred of cars. I hired an attorney for a consult. The attorney is a woman my age with shoes that say I do not blink. She told me judges like stability. She told me to keep documenting. She told me a pre-hearing was likely before anything drastic. She also told me to breathe. The pre-hearing was like a diet hearing. Small portions, no dessert. The judge read the motion, listened to quick statements, and said he would not change schools mid-year absent in emergency. He also suggested mediation. We had done it, and asked if we'd reached any agreements. We had a draft. Tom still hadn't signed. Then something unexpected happened. Elle's soccer coach submitted a short letter. It said in coach language that made me tear up in the courthouse bathroom that Elle is a reliable teammate who takes punctuality seriously and that arriving on time helps her feel safe and confident. It didn't attack Tom. It spoke for Elle. The judge nodded at it like it was a compass. He left the interim schedule as is and scheduled a full hearing for late spring if needed. Tom texted me after, "Happy you dragged our kid's coach into this?" I didn't reply. The coach had offered, after I asked if he'd be willing to describe the impact of late arrivals. He said he'd be honored. When people show up for your kid, there's a particular gratitude that lives in your bones. Update 5. 2 weeks after the pre-hearing, Tom signed a mediation draft. I don't know if it was the judge's tone, the coach's letter, or Peggy realizing that a courtroom is not the place to litigate organic hand soap. But he signed. The agreement isn't everything. It won't scrub their counters or install a house manager. But it's a map. Since then, Tom has been mostly on time. Not perfect, which I never expected, but better. I can tell he's setting alarms. Elle told me Peggy made a checklist on a whiteboard by the back door. Cleats, shin guards, water bottle, snack. Elle rolled her eyes when she said it, 10-year-olds, but she also said it helps. We still disagree about the school. I expect we'll still argue about the school when Elle is in college, and I'm sending her video links on how to assemble IKEA furniture without crying. But the Magnet Hill stands. The judge's no mid-year changes buys time, and the agreement cements a status quo that centers Elle's consistency. Elle told me something tonight while we were measuring cardboard for her Rube Goldberg contraption. She said, "Dad is trying." She said it like someone who has learned to notice effort and not dismiss it just because it's late. Then she said, "Dad's serious. I still like being home better." I kissed the top of her head and told her that you can like 2 things and still know which one is your anchor. I know this is long. If you made it here, thank you. The internet is full of jokes about parents who make everything dramatic. Maybe I'm one of them. I did just write an essay about shin guards. But when you're the grown-up with the calendar and the kid who cares, the boring parts of life are where the love lives. On-time arrivals, clean towels, a school that fits, a consequence that teaches what you value. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to split the driving he created, for keeping my daughter in the school she earned, and for insisting that if you're more than 15 minutes late to a thing she loves, the consequence is that I take her, so she doesn't miss it entirely?